Welcome on, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of March 8th to March 14th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Apollo 11, Everybody Knows, I'm Not Here, and The Invisibles.
We'll also be discussing risk-taking actors and directors, the infinite stories that have come out of World War II and are still coming out of World War II. We'll be talking Cleveland International Film Festival with our special guest, Bill Guentzler, and our Cedarly 3 picks for most anticipated films of 2019. We always like to start off the show with the last scene first, because we're a little backwards that way. So, Dave, what is the last film you've seen?
The last movie I saw was the sequel, Happy Death Day to You.
Ah, yeah.
I didn't see the first one in the theater. I saw it eventually on cable, and I was surprised at how just kind of silly and entertaining I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a horror movie. It's really just kind of a time travel-y comedy that has a couple little jump scares in it.
Right.
And this one is even more so that. Like, it's barely even like, I don't even think you could even call it a horror film. So I think horror fans would be highly disappointed.
By it, yeah.
But it's still, I thought it was pretty clever, and I
it's
enjoyed
got that
it.
Groundhog Day gimmick to...
Totally.
Yeah.
And they work so well back to back. Like, you could totally just like sit down and watch them as one thing, because it's kind of seamless the way that they did it. And I thought they did a lot of fun stuff in the sequel, even though there's a couple of huge plot holey things that make no sense. But anytime you have a time traveling movie, that's going to be true. So,
unless it's Primer.
Yeah, unless it's Primer, the most meticulously thought
so
out.
Meticulous.
Yeah. But this is not Primer, by any means. No, and it's certainly not Back to the Future. It is not like an iconic. It is not Live, Die, Repeat, aka Edge of Tomorrow, which was brilliant in my opinion. I love that movie. But this one was very entertaining in a light comedic way. Is what I would say.
I remember. I think you were the one who was recommending the first one when you saw it. You're like, it's actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I watched it with my son then, who was 10 at the time, and he would disagree with you because he was like covering his eyes or something. But he's only seen so many movies because he's was 10.
Yeah.
But then he saw the trailer for this one on YouTube. He's like, Dad, we have to go. Like, he was super psyched for it. We just haven't had time yet. But
it's very entertaining.
We'll have to do we'll rewatch the first one and then head right to the second one and see how that works out there.
And what was the last thing you saw, Aaron?
I was going to say, we are very opposite this week.
It's not unusual.
Like no, but it's not that way, though.
Right.
It's not the usual way where, like, I watched some, like, silent Japanese film from the teens or whatever. No, you watched something that was, like, light, fun entertainment there. And I watched part one of Leaving Neverland.
Oh.
The Dan Reed film, which is not light or fun or anything.
Is it as disturbing as people are saying it is?
It is quite, but I was trying to ignore, like, controversy, and I'm not going to do any commentary on, truth, false, whatever. I'm looking at it just as a movie because that's what it is, and I think people need to calm down a little bit.
Right.
And it's more like, again, it's also part one of two parts, so I'm not going to comment fully on the whole thing, but it's really just a few people's story, the main two guys and their moms, and it's more like a survivor's story than some, like, it is very graphic in description. Obviously, there's no footage of some of the abuse or whatever. There'd be a different reaction to it if it was. But it's these guys. So it's a very intimate story. And I was looking at it, at least part one, from the standpoint of there's different genres of documentaries. And, this isn't like a salacious Nick Broomfield, tabloidy expose movie, but it's also, it's kind of just a confessional, like just straight to the camera interviews, and then just a bunch of archival footage and still photos. And then there's also some mixed in, like, drone footage, it looks like, of, like, establishing shots of where people live. It's a story of, like, one kid's from Australia, one kid's from Simi Valley. So, like, the production to it's not really breaking new ground as far as the documentary goes. It is one of those that relies entirely on the subject matter and the story that it's telling there. And it's very compelling. And one film critic, I think at IndieWire, mentioned how watching it in one block of 4 hours, he said, like, it's, having this all distilled into, like, a 4 hour kind of time capsule piece, it picks up on so many threads through the years of accusations and things. You're like, oh, there was all this, these rumors and hints and all that. So it's definitely one of those, viewer discretion is advised, as HBO put at the front of the the screening. But
it is on my list, and I'm absolutely going to watch it in the very near future. But
it's definitely one of those worth watching.
Yeah,
but it's one of those like watch it, make up your own mind, and see what you think. But I'm waiting to dive into the criticism and the reviews after I finish the whole thing. Because I don't want to go into it knowing like what the reaction was from some of the critics I follow. So
I do the same thing. I very rarely read a lot of reviews or criticisms before I see something because I like the analysis afterwards. I don't want it to bias me in advance.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I probably have like 7 tabs open on my computer at home of like, I want to make sure I read this when I see it. And then it's also my reminder to go see that movie or watch that movie because I, want to read the analysis afterwards. So at the Art House this week, we opened 2 new movies. We opened Greta, which you were a fan of.
It's an entertaining little B movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Which we mentioned previously when we opened Arctic how Mads Mikkelsen is enough of a name to get people out. And I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me, but Isabelle Huppert is the same thing. So we've had...
Well, at the Cedar Lee.
At the Cedar Lee, sorry. Yeah, yes. Here. I mean, this is my world, so this is that's where I'm talking about. There is the standard kind of senior citizen crowd that comes into the movies that we love because they're here all the time seeing most everything that we show. And they're like, oh, that Isabelle Huppert movie. And we're like... Hold on just a second.
Just so you know.
She's done some wild movies over the years. I was saying like Elle or Piano Teacher, certain ones where you're just like, I feel like
pushes
you should be
the boundaries.
prepped. And there hasn't been the angry when they come out there, like, because it's not necessarily like, a proper, French film that, examines the tumultuous relationship, blah, blah, blah. It's like you said, it's a
B like thriller.
B thriller. Yeah. With some pretty good series. And I don't think they're used to watching some of those movies. But nobody came out complaining. One lady had the best line all weekend. She's like, well, I need a drink. She's like, I wasn't quite expecting that. But they all like, oh my God, that lady can choose some scenery. There's a lot of it too.
They really, Neil Jordan just let her have some fun, I think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, there's a reason kind of why we played it here at the Cedar Lee because Isabelle Huppert and Neil Jordan.
And it's playing kind of wide too.
It's very wide. So. And if you look at the theaters where it did very well, like it didn't do so great here at the Cedar Lee, but it did extremely well in mainstream theaters. So like if you look at like here just in Cleveland, like the mainstream theaters that were playing at like Valley View and places like that did really well. And I guarantee that people weren't going up to the box office at Valley View and saying, one for the Isabelle Huppert film.
There's no way that was happening.
That was not happening.
That's strange too that well, it's not strange, I guess, but this is that time of year though when you put out like the B movie, like Happy Death Day to You, the Greta's, Get Out, took that place a couple of years ago where like, post Oscar season, it's kind of like that B movie kind of genre film territory.
I always say, I watch so many of the art house films, a lot of serious things, a lot of depressing things, a lot of foreign films, and then I just need something fun.
Yeah.
And, there's nothing wrong
with
not at
all.
Sort of like the sorbet palate cleanser of cinema that is a good little B movie.
And we have that option coming up. We'll mention shortly in our special events this week coming up. But the other one we opened was Never Look Away, which most people know is like that 3-hour German film, which it is. But I was really impressed with our audience that I wasn't hearing a lot of complaints of like, oh, it's so long.
Yeah.
Most people said it flew by, which I thought it did too. It doesn't feel like 3 hours when you're watching it. But I also did want to take this opportunity to lodge an official complaint with anybody who has that, oh, it's such a long movie thing. This is the era of binge watching.
Right.
And people complain about the length of a movie the same time they go through all of like Stranger Things in a night.
I spent 8 hours watching Killing Eve over the weekend.
Right, there you go.
So yeah.
Like, I don't understand the complaint. Maybe because of your couch is more comfortable than, but wear your pajamas come in theater. We don't care.
You're getting more for your dollar if you think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But the one part the one buzz from the weekend that you didn't mention here yet, Aaron, was actually our biggest hit of the weekend, which was
Clue?
Was our showings of Clue. We had Clue for the Melt Barngold Late Shift. We had a sold out show at 9:30 with a live cast and just people having a blast with that film. And I love the fact that people are still embracing that movie so much. We hadn't shown it actually in about 5 years, I think maybe. It's been about that long.
It's been
and people were apparently chomping at the bit.
They certainly were.
We may bring it back and show it again in the fall in a different way just because I think people are interested.
To it.
So,
It definitely, that lobby going into the 9:30 show had the feel of, well, Rocky Horror because of costumes and whatnot, but that Big Lebowski, that like, oh, this is a true cult film. I just don't really think about it. I didn't grow up with the movie, so it didn't have nostalgia to me.
It's not a cult film for me. I did grow up with it, and it's just I like the film fine, but it's never been one of those movies that I like love. But I had an ex that was obsessed with it. He had a birthday party all themed around the movie.
Oh, nice.
So I mean, there are people that love Clue, and I just love whenever anybody comes. Nothing makes me happier than when people come to a movie dressed up.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
There was a lot of people,
and also a lot of people bringing like presumably their kids or nephew or niece or whatever. There was a younger crowd coming out for it. Even at the midnight show, there was a few. You were like, you're up that late, huh?
Yeah.
Which I've done that with my kids before to go see something related at the drive-in or whatever. And they remember it too. Like that's one of those defining like, oh, remember we went to that midnight movie?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that goes to the point about like that big shared communal experience. Like seeing Clue with 300 plus people in an auditorium is very different than sitting at home watching it with like you and your best friend on
100%.
DVD.
Especially when you have Simply as Servants, the live show, acted out in front of you there too as well. Well, one quick mention of the specialty box office before we get to our large lineup of new films opening up here. One of the new films that we discussed in just a minute is Apollo 11. It opened in IMAX-only theaters,
Correct.
which I missed that. You mentioned in the article that we were looking at. And did really well for being only IMAX because I knew that it was opening in limited release. I didn't even hear that it was IMAX, but that's always a good sign. This movie, well, we'll get to in just a second, but I was getting real strong parallels watching the trailer to obviously First Man, which we played just earlier this past year, which was one of my top 10 American films for the year for sure. That it was just weird to see very similar scenes in First Man that are even in the trailer for Apollo 11. You're like, wow, like they really nailed it in that fictional version. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it on the big screen in this new format. The other film that opened in limited release, which is coming up now in another week from now, is Gaspar Noé's new film Climax, which is doing some really strong, which is really weird to see one of his movies doing strong, especially box office, because he's such a polarizing filmmaker with Enter the Void and Irreversible, and we'll get more into him next week. But I'm really loving that he's getting some critical support on this one, and it looks like audiences are also responding to it.
This one might be slightly more accessible than some of his other films.
But then when you look at the premise or watch the preview, you're like, is that accessible?
I just like that it's like listed some places as horror musical.
Yes, yeah. I always look at those tags on IMDb to see like what genre is placed first, and you're like, horror musical, okay,
all right.
Like how many horror musicals can you name off the top of your head other than maybe
Anna and the Apocalypse is one of my favorite films of last year.
It was.
So.
Or I was thinking like Repo the Genetic Opera, or maybe
exactly.
Does Rocky Horror? That doesn't really count as
I
horror
guess.
musical.
I mean,
but,
no, it does musical. In a way.
It's a very unique genre that he is exercising in there. So. We will be right back it'll be 4 brand new films opening this week after a quick mention of a couple special events. Coming up this Saturday, March 9th, the Melt Bar and Grill Late Shift film series continues with our regular monthly showing of The Room. Again, Saturday, March 9th at 10 p.m. Bring your own spoons.
And on Wednesday, March 13th, we have a special Fathom Events showing of Doctor Who Logopolis. That's at 7 o'clock. And this is a classic 1981 show that features Tom Baker as Doctor Who. It's a kind of a multi-series or multi-part one that has been edited together as a feature film. And this week, we're going to be opening the new documentary, Apollo 11, by Todd Douglas Miller. This is a look at the Apollo 11 mission to land on the moon, led by Commander Neil Armstrong and pilot Buzz Aldrin, told entirely through archival footage.
I'd like to know what you feel as far as the responsibilities of representing mankind on this trip.
That's relatively difficult to answer. It's a job that we collectively said that was possible and we could do, and of course the nation itself is backing us, so we just sincerely hope that we measure up to that.
And Michael Collins, he was there too. He's like that third guy that always gets left off because he didn't get to the moon. He was the guy that was out there orbiting, waiting to pick him up afterwards.
Yeah.
So, but he was still there, so
So he counts.
It counts. It's historic.
Yeah, he is historic.
Yeah,
Why don't they make a movie just about that guy?
Because it would probably be anticlimactic.
It would be.
Yeah. But maybe
okay.
a good short.
We call it so far.
Behind,
Just say so close, but
floating
so far.
Because you're isolated, just floating in space, waiting for the history to happen there down below you. But this one really fascinates me because it's tied in, as we just mentioned, with First Man from last year, telling the fictional version of that story. Now, this is only archival footage. There's a new score, not a new score. There's a score to this movie that on some review I read somewhere, they said they only used instruments that were available in, whatever year.
1969.
1969, thank you. They only used instruments that were available in 1969 to compose the score. So that way it has that feel of like, this is what it would have been like if you scored it back then. But this is never before seen footage. That was unearthed somewhere in the NASA archives.
It seems amazing to me that you would think by now that all the footage you would have seen because there's so much famous stuff. But apparently this film has really incredible shots that you've never seen. And that's why they did that limited release in IMAX. And this is definitely film to be seen on the big screen. So
for sure. The other film we're opening is the new film from Asghar Farhadi, the famous Iranian filmmaker. Everybody knows. This stars Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem. Penelope Cruz plays a Spanish woman living in Buenos Aires who returns to her hometown outside of Madrid with her 2 children to attend her sister's wedding. However, unexpected things happen. And the trailer plays it up as a really interesting, missing child thriller.
Yeah, there's a lot of twists
with that. Yeah, twists, and everybody knows it's in the title. This one is also fascinating because this is the first time I would get a little nervous when there's filmmakers I really enjoy and they go outside of either their native language or their native country, mainly because I live in America. And when my favorite international filmmakers come to Hollywood, it doesn't always work out that well. As we mentioned last week with your favorite German filmmaker, I'll let you say his name. Florian Henkel von Donnerschmark, and when he came to America and
I was laughing too hard to say his
name. The Tourist.
But I do love that. I do love
The Lives of Others, then The Tourist, and now he's back with Never Look Away. So this is Asghar Farhadi working in Spain, in Spanish, not his native language, directing actors who are very familiar with the language, obviously. He is most famous for Separation in 2011. He won the Best Foreign Film Oscar and got a Best Screenplay nomination. So that's obviously a very well-regarded film within the Academy. And also The Salesman was also won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film. So I have faith in him going to a different country.
He's an amazing filmmaker.
And then John Foreman, president of Cleveland Cinemas, he was on last year. He saw this film at Toronto and was saying, I checked with him, like, is it really like a thriller? Or is it one of those misleading foreign film trailers? He's like, no, it's all there.
Yeah, no, I've heard that it's a very good thriller. I was upset because I missed the press screening we had, so I haven't had a chance to see it. And he is probably one of my favorite filmmakers right now, so I really was looking forward to it, but I had another commitment.
Just great, intimate character dramas.
But this one seems very different from his other ones, even though the other ones have a very kind of intense nature to them.
Right, but
they don't have a thriller
kind
of. They have unless you consider like intense domestic situations to be, kind of thriller. This has a more traditional thriller kind of context to it.
Exactly.
And we are also going to be opening this week a new film for 1 week only. It's going to be playing. It's called I'm Not Here. It's directed by Michelle Schumacher, and it stars her husband, J.K. Simmons, as a man who struggles with the tragic memories of his past to make sense of his present, but soon realizes that time isn't the enemy he thinks it is.
This particular film it's got an interesting structure to it where you have J.K. Simmons, a famed character actor who...
Oscar winner.
I apologize. Oscar winning, predominantly character actor, though, as far as Hollywood is concerned. I don't know if that's one of those, like when you work with your spouse, you can be like, oh, now you get a starring role or, leading man kind of status. But he is dealing with just like the isolation that comes with being, seems like an alcoholic jerk basically throughout his life and mean to his family and kind of driving people away as he kind of wanders around his house in old age. All these memories are triggered. So you have one character played by 3 different actors. Sebastian Stan plays him at, kind of more of a middle age, 30-something. And then apologies to the young boy who plays him as a young child actor. I don't remember his name. And so, it's one of those kind of memory flashback things where he realizes kind of the error of his ways as he kind of, you get to see J.K. Simmons finally, in a starring role as kind of the emotional center to this film. The last film we are opening this week is The Invisibles from director Claus Räfle. This is a really fascinating movie. It played here at the Jewish Film Festival, the Mandel JCC Jewish Film Festival in 2018, which is where I got to see it. And it's a World War II story. It's the story of what they called the Invisibles. It was after Joseph Goebbels infamously, declared Berlin free of Jews in 1943. But it was sort of like how a lot of people were driven underground to hide their identity, to participate in day-to-day society and just live their life invisible. And this film, instead of just taking that story and fictionalizing it, obviously it's based on true events, the director did interviews, I think it was like in 2009 and 10, with the survivors, like the actual people that these characters are based on. So it's a mix of these interviews with the actual people telling their story, and then you see, fictional recreations of that story. So he didn't do full fictional narrative, but he didn't do full documentary. It's a really interesting mix that kind of adds a bit of extra weight to the situation because you're seeing the real people on screen. And it's another one of those examples of a true story where you see, okay, those people are being interviewed in 2009, 2010, they survived, but in the context of the movie, you're like,
it's still intense.
It's intense, yeah. Like, are they going to survive? Because that is a brutal regime that they were just like totally invisible and had to get by and to do what they could. Morally compromising some of themselves some of the times to participate in situations that you're like, you don't want to be here, but I got to survive.
It's a very story. Everybody is put in a position where they have to make choices that they should never have to make.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And it's a very good movie. It's very well shot and it's very well acted. And there were elements to it that we always talk about, how there's so many films that take place during World War II, and there's always these stories you think, like, how many more stories could there be?
Exactly.
But there do just seem to be an endless amount of stories that could be told because it was such a monumental moment in history.
Right, absolutely. I think we actually mentioned that in one of our very first episodes of this, because we were showing Operation Finale.
Right.
And how we're like, I didn't know this happened.
Story, yeah.
Even in Never Look Away, which we're currently showing, there's an element where you see the Russian troops come in, and it's like post World War II, and they have this German, this Nazi doctor that they're talking to, and is like, I forgot about the Russian experience in World War II. Like it is such a huge, massive, world-changing event that there's endless stories to tell there. We'll be right back with our special guest, Bill Guentzler, the artistic director for the Cleveland International Film Festival, after these special events we're reminding you about. As we mentioned earlier in the show, if you're looking for a palate cleanser to all of the really heavy, heavy films that we have been showing here at the theater, we have Cat Video Fest 2019, which has 2 remaining shows that aren't sold out just yet, but we would recommend getting your tickets ahead of time for that one, just in case. And also, I'd say arrive about 20 minutes early to make sure you get a good seat. The showtimes we have tickets for that still remain are Sunday, March 10th at 11 a.m. and Tuesday, March 12th at 7 p.m. And a proceed of every ticket sold does benefit local adoption
cat charity.
I was like drawing a blank on what that would be called. Cat charity sounded like a weird, like there's a bunch of cats that just need your money, which they do. But the local,
these are just a bunch of panhandling cats.
Yeah, just outside the theater with their cups in their hand and their paws.
That would be so adorable
and sad a little bit at the same time.
Both.
But it benefits the House of Muse. So please come on out, support a local charity, and laugh and enjoy some cat videos on the big screen.
And a quick shout out to a special event that's not happening at the Cedar Lee, but instead happening at our sister theater, the Capitol Theater on the west side. On Tuesday, March 12th at 7:30, we're going to have a special screening of Buffy the Vampire Slayer in honor of Mansfield, Ohio native Luke Perry, who passed away on Monday, March 4th after suffering of a stroke.
Well, the Cleveland Film Festival 43 guides are here, and so is Bill Guentzler, our guest today, who's the artistic director for the Cleveland International Film Festival. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
Well, since the guides are here and new, I was sort of curious, when does the guide start for you? Since we all at the public just got them yesterday in our hands, when does that process start for you?
Actually, that starts in fall. As soon as we start confirming films for the festival, we have a team of writers that start writing the synopses, and we start collecting the images, we start collecting the press kits to get the credits. So that starts as soon as we're confirming the films, seeing the films still. So I'd say probably September, October.
So then before we get into this year's festival, I was curious, what was your first experience with the Cleveland International Film Festival?
Actually, it was going to a film in 1995. It was a Slovak film, and it was the year that my grandfather died. So I wanted to hear Slovak on the screen. Mm-hmm. And I remember going with my one friend, and we sat in front because we got there late, right when the screening was starting. And I pointed at Dave Witkowski and I said I wanted his job. I'm joking, but I have his job. And I've had it for 20 years now.
Was this an All About Eve situation?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I wish it was. I wish there was more of a story back there, but it's not. No. I just interned. But the best thing about it is that this year we are playing the new film from that same director.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah. And what's the director?
The new film that we're screening is The Interpreter, Martin Schulich.
And then, so when did you first start with the Cleveland International Film Festival?
I started going as a pass holder. Like the following year, I think I went to like 20 films, and the following year I went to see as much as I could. And I was about to graduate from Cleveland State, and I needed an internship, and so I asked them if I could intern that festival, which was in 1999, and
it's 20 years then.
Yeah. So 98 was my pass holder year. Mm-hmm. I worked in 98 in the fall of 98. Okay. 99 was my first festival. So it's actually 21.
Okay.
If you count that festival plus this one.
We'll count it then.
It counts. Yes. You're already working on this one.
Mm-hmm. So I'm old enough to drink in the festival world.
All right. In festival years.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And so speaking of this year, what is new this year? Anything specific you want to highlight right up front, or
actually,
just a list of stuff here?
There is a huge thing that's new this year. We're expanding. We're expanding to CIFF East and CIFF West. It's kind of an outshoot of our neighborhood screenings that we've had over the past couple of years. But this year we are having a full weekend of programming on the west side in Gordon Square using the Capitol Theater and Near West Theater on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the first Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the festival. And then the second weekend, we're screening films at both the Gartner Auditorium and the Lecture Hall at Cleveland Museum of Art. and the Cleveland Museum of Natural History.
Awesome.
The films that you're screening there too, they're not only playing there, they play also downtown. So if you are just going to stay at Tower City, you can still catch those titles that are playing off-site
exactly
as well.
Yeah,
right.
everything that is screening off-site will be at
also
least
Tower
one
City.
screening at Tower City.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And then you also have a few new. There's also the general competitions that you guys have each year, but you're also expanding with not competition, but the Dreamcatcher Award this year is a new one.
Yeah. So this year we're launching the Dreamcatcher Award, which is in honor of our longtime board member Dave Ream. So the DR is capitalized in Dreamcatcher, and we're featuring an LGBT filmmaker. And we want to do this every year of the festival, and we don't necessarily have to be playing their most recent film. This year is Jamie Babbitt, who is heavily working in television now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she is originally
Didn't
from
we
Cleveland.
talk about that? All of her TV stuff recently? I feel like we were talking about Jamie on one of our shows recently, or maybe that was off mic.
I think it was off mic.
Yeah. But yeah, we were talking about all the great work she's still doing. And so that's
exactly.
awesome. She's coming back.
It was like how many 90s-ish filmmakers that were working in the American independent scene have just sort of migrated into this golden age of television now.
Exactly.
As a way of work.
So in addition to Dreamcatcher, we're having our Director Spotlight and Someone to Watch. We haven't had both of those awards in the same festival in many years. And both filmmakers are women. We're doing Jennifer Bikewall as our Director Spotlight. She's a Canadian filmmaker. We're playing 3 of her documentaries. It's actually a trilogy. And Rima Das from India, we're playing 2 of her films.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I think Manufactured Landscapes I saw at the festival whenever year that one was.
Yeah, I think it was 2006.
Yeah. And then I was curious, what made you guys, last year was the first year you did opening night downtown at Playhouse Square, and repeating that again this year. Obviously, it was a big success last year. The film even went on to win the Roxanne T. Mueller Award last year, The Drummer and the Keeper. What made you guys do the leap to Playhouse Square last year?
I think it was something previously we did have one opening night when we moved downtown to Tower City back when it was Hoyt Cinemas, when Tower City first opened. We had our opening night the previous year when the festival was still all held at the Cedar Lee. We had opening night at the Ohio Theater, and that was Major League.
Oh, right.
So that was our first test of Playhouse Square. That was in the 80s. It was a little bit different. But with all that's happening in Playhouse Square and just the beautiful theaters that they have there, we wanted to try to at least have opening night there.
And you get a different energy when you have, even though you have the same number of bodies, basically, they're not spread out amongst 7-8 auditoriums. They're all in one auditorium, and it just has a different energy when they're all in one giant auditorium.
And I think that
more of an event feel in a way.
That led to the full experience, and probably one of the reasons why I did win a Roxanne T. Mueller, because it was such a good feel-good film last year. Everybody was together. Went directly to the party.
And people don't understand, modern moviegoers don't understand that people that went to see movies in the 30s, they went to see movies at like Radio City Music Hall with that many people, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people or more in an auditorium. So it gives you that experience, which very few people get a chance to have anymore in their life. So I think it's a great opportunity.
We took our kids out to Blossom. They did one of those Cleveland Orchestra play-alongs with the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that was the largest crowd I've ever seen a movie with. And yeah, the feeling there was just completely different. Even the kids responded. They'll still reference like, oh, what are we going to see this summer out there? Or the Cinema on the Square downtown as well. Not quite as big a crowd, but still, like you just don't get that many people together to share a story these days.
Yeah, we always talk about, and even in like our little policy trailer, it's like, thanks for, preserving the movie-going experience, because that is what it is. It's a communal experience, and you feed off the energy of other people. And
exactly.
You can't underestimate
and with the movement now, when you look at the 2 large theaters here at the Cedar Lee, that's considered way too big in the movie-going experience now.
Right. No, all new movie theaters, especially ones when they have the reclining seats and stuff that take up so much space, like large auditoriums now are like 120 seats, and that used to be the smallest theater in a house or in a theater, and now they're giant. So the fact that the Capitol with 422 seats, I think, is now the largest auditorium in Cleveland for regular movies. Because the theaters that had larger ones have converted. So I think that I might be not 100% accurate, but I know the Valley View one that used to be bigger, now it has like 250 seats. So now you can't get as many bodies into those auditoriums.
I've been curious over the years, seeing the movies that are selected for opening night. Is there certain criteria you look for in an opening night type movie? Because I've also seen Irreversible at the festival, and that's not an opening night movie, but it's a movie that you want to play
opening night
at the festival. But you're going for a very wide kind of selection of the audience there.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of people that go to opening night don't go to the general festival, or they'll maybe see one more film at the festival. So we're thinking of them, and we are thinking of the wide variety of people that are going there. So we want to make it, accessible English language, preferably with a famous face or two.
Sure.
And something that at the end there's redemption. It's not necessarily always a feel good film, but there's something great about it that you leave it.
It still feels satisfying. When
And the fact that we have a party afterwards too. You don't want to depress everybody in the
That's
true
alcohol.
Too. Yeah. So, but Dave's looking at me because he knows that I like to do that.
Well, Bill and I both love really downbeat movies.
Right.
And I just remember the one year when I was in charge of all the projection stuff, and it just seemed like it was almost like a suicide count the one year. Like I was saying, like every movie I would watch, I'm like, Bill, how many movies did you program where someone kills themselves?
Yeah.
And then there was one movie that I just absolutely hated the one year that Bill loved. And I said, the only thing good about it is that at least one of the characters killed themselves, and I only wish the rest of them would have. So, I can't remember the name of that movie.
But it was a French film. I totally
remember
the
film.
I totally remember the film. I can't remember the name.
So as you're the artistic director now, when you're looking at the Cleveland Film Festival, you when you're getting an eye towards programming, you travel around to. There's obviously a selection committee as well, but you travel around to other festivals. Do you have certain festivals you travel to each year that are like your regular stops?
Yeah, actually, it's turned over the past probably about 10 years. I have my schedule.
The Bill Guentzler tour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I start off over the past couple of years. I've been going to the Edinburgh Film Festival, and that's at the end of June. And I go directly to Karlovy Vary, which is outside of Prague. That's where we get a lot of our Eastern European films for our Central and Eastern European competition. Then I come home for a couple weeks. I used to go to Montreal World Film Festival, but that's sadly ending.
Is it?
It's on life support essentially right now, which is sad because it was a great festival, but competing with Toronto, and there's other film festivals in Montreal.
In Montreal, I was going to say, I would go there for Fantasia, and I see, Mallory up at Fantasia up there.
So, but then Toronto, which, it's a huge industry festival, TIFF in September. And I go to Vancouver, which is a catch-up for TIFF. Well, I skip the bigger films at TIFF because the lines are so long. I see the smaller things that I'm going to get for the festival, and then I'll catch the bigger films in Vancouver. And then this past year, I went to London because I got invited to the Ghent Film Festival. So since I was in Belgium, I might as well hop on a train.
Why not?
Yeah. And then I went to Doc Leipzig, which is I got a few really great documentaries from there, and Tallinn in Estonia, another Eastern European festival, which has been growing in prestige, and then always Sundance in January.
And how many languages do you speak, Bill? Because I know you speak German.
I speak German, and I understand some Slovak because my grandfather was Slovak. And my German isn't as great as when I was studying, but it's fair. It still works.
It still works. It's functional.
Yeah.
But again, everything, like we always say, it's weird how perfect everyone's English is as you travel around.
Yes. So I don't really have to worry about
which is why your German might not be as good anymore because you don't have to use it as much.
Whenever I'm in Germany, like most of my friends they're tired of me practicing, so we just speak English.
Do most of the festivals then have, like you're over in Estonia watching a film festival, would there be English subtitles, or are you just on your own with?
English subtitals are kind of like the standard in the film festival world. The secondary is French, but then a lot of festivals outside of, if you're not in France or an English-speaking country, they'll have electronic subtitles under the screen. So you'll see the burned-in subtitles on the film, and then right below it, there's an additional screen with the other language.
The digital age. That's handy. There, since you mentioned TIFF is sort of an industry festival, that was sort of how, like, you always picture Sundance, some of those big ones that, like, the general public knows about as industry festivals. But then it seems like there's been more and more popping up of, like, genre festivals, like True False or Fantastic Fest, certain things like that. How do you see Cleveland? Like, how does it fit in that world of film festivals?
Well, Cleveland is fairly old in the film festival world. I mean, when John started it, in '77, that's when a lot of festivals kind of started. It, Toronto, that's when Montreal started. It was kind of like this golden age of starting festivals.
Yeah, I think New York is pretty around there too. Yeah,
and then there was kind of a lull of the new festivals, and then there were a bunch of the genre festivals popping up, or every city had a festival or multiple festivals.
Every city, every suburb,
and then every large city had a gay festival, a Jewish festival, an Italian festival, name it festival.
Yeah, which we have here in Cleveland as well. We have a Jewish film festival. We host the Italian film festival, and there's
Shorts
festival here. Yeah.
Chagrin.
In the Chagrin Doc Festival. So there are a lot of festivals here just in the Cleveland area, but obviously you guys are still the gold standard. And by attendance, just by attendance alone, the Cleveland Film Festival, I don't think people understand that if you just judge festivals by attendance, you guys are right up there in the States anyway.
Yes. I mean, we are, if you think about it, there's two festivals that have audiences our size and about the same amount of films. It's us in Seattle. Seattle is a month long.
Yeah,
we're only 12 days. So I like to joke with the people that run Seattle that we are still bigger and better because we condense it. But yeah, so I mean, the Cleveland International Film Festival, I mean, even since I started, 21 years ago, it's more than double the size. And
it's tripled, really.
It's tripled
in the last 12 years. I think it's basically tripled. Because I feel like when I started with Cleveland Cinemas, it was about 30-ish thousand something a year, and now it's over 100. So that's amazing. Yeah. And you guys have really done an amazing job of partnering with organizations and really honing in on your partner for films, and your community outreach is just really impressive. Yeah. And I think that you can't underestimate the importance of that, along with your programming and really kind of fine-tuning what your audience is responding to. Obviously, that there's a lot of Eastern Europe people here, and that's really kind of built. I have a friend who loves Asian action films. He's like, they never show any of that. I'm like, yeah, but there's a reason why. I mean, I love them too, but even when we show them at the Cedar Lee or the Capitol, we don't get a lot of people for them. So it's just what the audience responds to. You have to respond to that as well.
Yeah.
But I do wish you showed more Korean films.
I would say South Korean thrillers. There's The Chaser.
But they're really hard to work. And not hard to work with. That was misspeaking. But a lot of times they go direct to VOD after they have a festival premiere.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And the companies, by the time these films are doing a festival run, the companies have moved on to other films. And so they don't care.
Yeah.
People can watch it on VOD in their minds.
Right. No, the world of film distribution and exhibition, when I try to explain it to people, it's like,
how much time do you have?
The biggest head scratcher on earth. We're getting inundated right now with people about a specific anime film. They're like, why aren't you showing this one? And it's like, well, and I reach out to the distributors oh, it's a very small release. We're only doing 10 cities, 10, and that's it.
Yeah.
They don't, even if you ask and you want to play it, they won't give it to you. And sometimes it's because their contract is basically whatever, we're playing it in this many cities, this many dates, and then it's all about the VOD or home video release, and that's all they care about, really. So they don't care if people in Cleveland got a chance to see it on the big screen.
From their point of view too, it's a lot of work for them.
Yeah,
it's much easier to just here are the 10 cities we're releasing it in, and we're going to put it on this online platform that people will watch on at home.
Yeah,
if you're releasing it in the second tier or even third tier cities, you're sending the format, you're sending the exhibition copy, you're sending images, you're sending posters, you're going back and forth. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and a lot of these, especially the smaller companies, there's it's only a couple of people. Sometimes
you're talking to the CEO,
right?
Who's shipping you something.
The same person that books the film is the guy that secured the film, that is sending you out all the stuff, and then the tube shows up completely mangled, and then they have to send it again. That just happened to us here. Some poster tube ended up showed up here completely empty, and they were very disheartened that I said, "I'm sorry, UPS or FedEx ate your poster that you sent us. Please send another."
Well, Bill, before you head back, because I'm sure you're very busy and have a festival to, finish up organizing here, one last very important question this year. Is there going to be a snowstorm during the festival this year?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing that, 21 years where it's you can prepare for everything. And then, we have this long checklist, we call it the fiasco sheet, of things that we've dealt with.
Good. Yeah.
Right, within the month of the festival.
Yeah.
And there's always something new. So,
but I still tell the story about the day that we got that foot of snow.
Yeah.
And there still was over 2,000, 2,500, something like that, people that came and watched movies that day because they were trapped downtown. They had nothing else to do. So all those people in those hotels, they could get to us.
Yep.
I mean, I couldn't get home that day, and I lived 5 minutes from the theater, but I had nothing else to do.
There were a lot of people wearing the same clothes the next day, which
Yep.
is fine.
Yeah. And so before we let you go, Bill, you want to tell us about where people can get tickets, when do tickets go on sale, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so tickets go on sale for members Friday, March 8th, general public the following Friday, the 15th. Program guides are slowly going across the city. I heard stories of when they were dropped off here at the Cedar Lee that people were grabbing them off the truck. That also happened when they were being delivered at the office. But they are around. You can also download it on our website, clevelandfilm.org, where you can see all the listings, and when tickets do go on sale, you can buy them there. But we also have a downloadable program guide available there as well.
Awesome.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with our Cedar Lee 3 picks for this week, our most anticipated films of 2019. Coming up this weekend, the Bolshoi Ballet is back on the big screen with The Sleeping Beauty, Sunday, March 10th at 11 a.m. and Wednesday, March 13th at 7 p.m.
And we have another Fathom event, and Aniplex USA present, I'm going to read this exactly how the title is because I love anime titles. Fate/Stay Night, brackets, Heaven's Feel, end brackets, Roman numeral 2, Lost Butterfly. I love that title. So it's Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Feel 2, Lost Butterfly. We showed the first Fate Stay Night film a few years ago, and it was packed. So this one is actually doing very well as well. And that is playing Thursday, March 14th at 7 p.m. And it is subtitled. So it's the original Japanese language with English subtitles.
The way you're meant to see it. So each week we like to take inspiration from one of the new films and suggest some 3 other films to broaden your cinematic world, your cinematic horizons. And this one, we pushed off from last week. We wanted to do a hard end to the year of 2018 in film. Although technically we do have a couple 2018 foreign films still coming up with Birds of Passage and things. So I'm excluding foreign films from that list of things I'll be watching still from 2018. We're looking ahead now. We're looking ahead to 2019. There's a whole brand new year of films that are already scheduled to come out. And obviously there'll be some that are going to pop up that we don't even know about right now. They're going to be our favorites that we're looking forward to probably in the fall or something. So Dave, your films of 2019 you're looking forward to, do they include any Marvel or Star Wars films?
Well, I am looking forward to.
But like of your top 3 that you know about? Okay.
No, but I absolutely am looking forward to the new Avengers movie because I want to see how they resolve how many of those people they killed in the last one. Yeah. So I am looking forward to that because it's a good cliffhanger. But the first film that I'm really looking forward to is a film that's going to be coming out here at the end of March. And it's a film we may actually end up playing here at the Cedar Lee. There's been some discussion, but I'm not sure it will be playing here, and that's Us, the new film by Jordan Peele, his follow-up to his Oscar-winning film Get Out. And it looks a lot of fun. It's another horror film. And I watch a lot of horror movies, so people think I'm a huge horror movie fan, and that's not actually the truth.
You correct me all the time.
It's just I end up watching them because everybody in my life loves horror movies, so I watch a lot of them. But it's not the genre that I respond to the most.
Sure.
But I am really looking forward to it, mainly because I want to see was Get Out a fluke, or is this someone who's an amazing filmmaker that we've got to pay attention to from now on?
Right.
I mean, he is hilarious in all of the things he's done before this.
Yeah.
And then he did Get Out, which was a completely different vibe. So I'm just curious to see how he follows it up as an artist. So that's the reason I'm really looking forward to see Us.
It does seem to be one of those that getting pigeonholed as a filmmaker where he didn't go off and do no, I'm going to do like we were just talking about a minute ago, he didn't go off and do a World War II, tragic, drama or anything. He's staying within the same genre, but almost like horror film as parallel or as metaphor, I should say, to something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, to that point, there's another. I'll sneak in another one that I'm not looking forward to, and that I've already seen, and it's the new film by Jennifer Kent, who did The Babadook.
Oh yes.
And that is a complete different change.
Right, exactly.
I mean, her new movie is not another horror film.
Right.
So it's interesting whenever someone, you say that maybe is he going to just be a horror film director?
That's what I was wondering. He's going to get pigeonholed into that,
as opposed to her, who made this amazing first film that was a horror film, and then her next one is this kind of revenge story that takes place in the old west of Australia. So it's just interesting to see what filmmakers who had an amazing debut, what they follow that up with.
Right. Or even just a hit. I'm drawing a blank on the director's name, but the guy that directed It Follows, he's following that up with Under the Silver Lake, which is not a horror movie thriller in any sense. It's just a good filmmaker, and he's telling another really fantastic story. I'm just going to do my first one right off the bat because I mentioned it probably every episode so far of this particular podcast. Do you have any guess what that one is?
Is it the new Martin Scorsese film?
It is the new Martin Scorsese film.
What
it's
a shock.
The Irishman.
What
and
a
I'm only
shock.
mentioning it because at Netflix Films, their official Twitter account, tweeted the I don't even think it's a teaser. It's basically like an animated poster. It just has all the names and a bullet casing falling through all the names. They tweeted that it will be in theaters and on Netflix this fall. So I'm happy.
Since I know you didn't really watch the Oscars
I didn't actually.
live as they were going on, you were just watching on Twitter. Yeah. They actually ran a commercial for it, that little teaser thing.
Right.
And with all the voiceover and stuff like that. And that ended with them saying, like in theaters.
Right.
And so I think that it's, at least that makes you a little happy to know that you're going to have a chance to see it in the theater. So yes, I knew that would be on your list.
I figured you would.
That's an excellent choice. I'm looking forward to it as well. The next film that I'm looking forward to is just one, it's not a filmmaker that I'm familiar with, but based on the buzz that it got out of Sundance, I'm very excited to see The Souvenir by Joanna Hogue. It had amazing reviews out of Sundance. It stars Tilda Swinton and Richard Ayoade, who's one of my favorite people, but he's usually known for
directing.
Well, he's directed a couple of movies. He directed Submarine and The Double, and then he also directed, he's mostly known as a comedic actor, though. He was a star of The IT Crowd and a bunch of other like British sitcom-y kind of things, and he hosts a lot of shows in England. But this is a more dramatic kind of film, so I'm curious to see it. And I'm not sure exactly when we're going to be seeing that here in Cleveland, but I think it's probably going to be late May or early June. I think it's going limited in the middle of May. So hopefully by the time, if they're probably going to do the platform release with it, so I'm assuming we'll probably see it.
Because the trailer for that one popped up right after Sundance, so it seemed like whoever picked that one up, they're ready to.
I think it's A24 maybe.
Oh, that sounds like one of our movies,
A24, something like that. So.
Sure. The next one I am looking forward to. I'm going to go at random. That one is I have three circles. I just wasn't sure. I don't have them in an actual ranked order. No, I do. The Irishman's up top. The next one would be The Lighthouse. It is the new film from Robert Eggers, who did The Witch.
Yes.
Or was it just Witch? No, it was The Witch.
It's
a couple years back.
I think it's just Witch.
It was like the two V's to make a W kind of thing. So well, IMDb says The Witch, so we'll go with The Witch because that's the
there you go.
That's the Bible for film titles. This movie, I'm trying to not read too much about. I want to go in as cold as I can. So the synopsis is I think it's like two lighthouse keepers. It's Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, and I just right there, I'm in. There's actually my other film is a Robert Pattinson film as well. That's weird, but
it's not weird because we've talked about this I think before, where he is one of those people that's like, I've made all that Twilight money, now I'm just going to do interesting weird things.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, even though I haven't liked all of those movies. I appreciate that
he's taking some risks. And he's
that
going
I appreciate that he is doing something rather than just being like, I'm going to be the dream boy.
I'm gonna look up when that started because I remember I think we did discuss on the show, or maybe it was off mic. He and Kristen Stewart as well are picking these projects. We're like, oh, all right, and they're also showing that they've got the chops, they are really, really good. So
I never would have expected at the time, when the Twilight movies were out, Robert Pattinson. I just was horrified by him visually. I just think that I did not understand when people were trying to pass.
Well, that was
off
makeup and cinematography choices.
Well, but no, I still don't find him visually appealing. I don't think that he's a heartthrob, but I think he is a very good actor. So I've appreciated him.
Teen girl, you may not be the demographic they were going for.
Yeah, but as an older gay guy, I totally am.
Maybe you're the demographic.
Come on. I'm allowed to determine who's a dream boy and who's not.
That's true. What is your final pick, Dave?
My last one is the new film by Taika Waititi, and is called Jojo Rabbit. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because I think it's one of those ones, the less you know, the better. And it is, but it co-stars Sam Rockwell, Rebel Wilson, Stephen Merchant, and Taika Waititi. He, of course, his last film was Thor Ragnarok, which was an amazingly entertaining, very funny, different take on a superhero movie. It isn't your traditional, just action movie. It's really more of a comedy.
As you're saying, when you look up movies and how they're listed on IMDb, I really assume that'd be comedy first.
It is
and
a
then
comedy.
Superhero after that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny.
And it is, so his new one, we'll just say that he plays Hitler in some capacity in the film. And so I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about how there's all these World War II stories. Well, here's another
that's
one.
True, yeah.
There you go.
That is an odd theme. It just keeps popping up around here.
It does.
The last one I have is the new Claire Denis film, one of my favorite international filmmakers still working in the world. And it's another Robert Pattinson film called High Life.
Yeah.
He and Juliette Binoche and I think Andre Benjamin's in there. Just look up the cast. It sounds crazy. And it's another one where just the poster. I haven't watched the trailer, even though I know it's out.
It's a sci-fi kind of
in space, and
the trailer is amazing.
Yeah,
it is absolutely. I can't remember. I just saw it on. I saw it in the theater. I saw the screen, some screening. I can't remember. And this trailer played, and my fiance leans over. He's like, "That looks amazing."
Yeah,
and I'm like, "It does. It looks really, really great." So you were wise to have that on your list. It's a film I'm looking forward to as well.
The only thing I had heard so far, which isn't really even about the film, but that she was prepping High Life as this like outer space meditation on. Who knows what she's exploring in this one. But then she ended up doing With the Sun Shining, which was one of my favorite foreign films last year with Juliette Binoche, as this sort of like quick side project while, the schedule's opened up for everybody to work on High Life. And I was like, that's your quick side. Oh my God, I can't wait to see what you're actually, working on now. If it's another, White Material or Beau Travail or something, that I was like, I'm expecting quite a bit from this one.
It's such a departure whenever you have these people making, like a filmmaker that has made these very terrestrial sort of stories, like, and that are these powerful.
Intended.
Yeah, very much so. And then to do this broader kind of.
It's just a genre I wouldn't have pictured. No. For like, you're doing, all right. I mean, I'm in, but.
I love that. When you have someone that can step outside what has been so far, I don't want to say comfort zone, because who knows, this might be the best thing she's ever made.
Absolutely,
so I'm very anxious to see
you throw a good filmmaker in any genre, they should be able to do something really interesting in that.
Think about
again, it's another, taking some risks.
Think about John Sayles. He was able to do, he's able to do so many different genres.
Yeah.
So.
Join us on next week's episode. We'll be discussing, again, 4 new movies opening up here. We're going to be opening Climax, Birds of Passage, Combat Obscura, and Ruben Brandt, Collector. Next week's Cedarly 3 theme, kind of inspired by Birds of Passage, kind of ties into Climax as well, but Birds of Passage deals with 3 decades of one family in the Colombian drug trade. We're going to be discussing our top 3 drug films to get you a little high on cinema next week with our recommendations. Submit your picks at Cedarly Theater using the hashtag Cedarly3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedarly Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review. Or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.